Welcome to another episode of Cape Ann Today. We are speaking today with Alison Woitunski DiFiore. Alison is the new executive director of the Backyard Growers, replacing founder Laura Lepionka, who built the organization up from her own Beacon Street backyard to an organization involved in communities and school curriculums across New England. Hi, Alison. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm well.
Alison.
How are you?
Good.
Great.
First off, tell us why you wanted to come to Backyard Growers.
I've admired Backyard Growers since Lara founded it. I first met Lara when she turned her yard into the Beacon Street farm and had a chance to help her with that work. Kind of over the years, actually, I've been involved with the organization for a while in a bunch of different roles. I have always really admired the work Backyard Growers does and admired Lara as a leader. Like, it's such a gift to inherit an organization that is just really positioned for success, super well organized. It's been really fun, and it's just been exciting to jump in on that.
So,
All right.
Alison, so what is your background in the food movement?
Yeah, so I have been working in food systems pretty much my entire adult life, and I'm almost 37 now. So I started in my early 20s working at the Food Project, which is another local organization in the Boston area that works at the intersection of youth, food, and community. I had a few different roles with them. Most recently, although it was a while ago, as the youth and community program manager for their North Shore site. Since then, I've worked primarily in small scale agriculture, usually with family farms. So I've done that in New England and in Hawaii and California. I have an MBA in sustainable systems, which is sort of like a unique kind of progressive MBA that looks at not only businesses, but also nonprofit organizations for ways to have sustainable systems, but make a positive impact on the world. Most recently, I've been working in the ag tech space with small scale farmers on their business models. And recently, or a couple of years ago anyways, during the pandemic, moved back to Gloucester from kind of those other places that I mentioned. But so I've done a few different things in food systems. My roots are really in community agriculture and food access.
Mm.
So, Alison, you really are, neck high in that soil, that local soil for sure, and the subjects all around. So, can you talk about how you've seen the food movement evolve over, let's just say, the past 10 years? I think, is the Backyard Growers 10 years old?
A little bit more. I think it's about 12 years old. Yeah.
Okay. So in that time, let's say 12 years, how have you seen the food movement evolve?
Yeah. I mean, I think, in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, farmers markets in our area were pretty new, depending on where you were, but that there was a resurgence of farmers markets in our area, which really opened the doors, I think, for a lot of small scale agriculture in the region, like folks that previously, prior to there being more farmers markets, maybe wouldn't have had like an entry point for sales, did have that. And so we've seen a lot more small scale farming happen, a new younger generation, particularly in our area, of farmers, and a resurgence in urban agriculture as well. I mean, urban agriculture is kind of as old as agriculture is in a lot of ways, but we've seen definitely a resurgence in urban ag through organizations like the Backyard Growers, like the Food Project, like Mill City Grows, like all of these urban ag organizations. But also, I think, in the past couple of years, particularly because of the pandemic, we've really seen a lot of backyard gardens happening as well. I mean, clearly that is a part of urban agriculture, but, on the individual or family basis versus necessarily just through community organizations. I think people have really wanted to have access to more locally grown food. I think that consumers today are a lot more aware of the food system and where their food is coming from. And, 10 years ago, people were caring about organic certifications. And I think that folks still do. And that's, one part of many things. But I think now we have really sophisticated eaters out there who know that, an organic certification on food coming from another country or like the other side of our country or what have you is one part of it, but that the healthiest food you can have access to is something that you're growing yourself. I also think we've seen people connecting to their food and wanting their children to connect to their food. So we've definitely seen like an uptick in the desire for farming and agriculture and gardening to be a part of kids' educational experience. So I think that folks are kind of in a way coming, not full circle in terms of their lifetime, but in terms of canned goods, kind of coming back to like wanting to have a kitchen garden, wanting to grow their own food, knowing where their food comes from. I think kids 10 years ago might not have necessarily known that a carrot is something that grows under the ground and you pull out a leafy top. But I think that we're seeing that kids are, and particularly like in Gloucester, in large part to backyard growers, because it's something that's becoming, more the norm. And so, yeah, I think we're seeing people care a lot more about where their food has come from, what they're eating, and really wanting to know how to grow it themselves.
I have a follow-up to that, Corey. Excuse me one second. So, and you may or may not be able to answer this, Alison, but this community has lost two important food institutions, local food institutions. Alprilla Farms has moved to New Hampshire. And also I just learned that we've lost the Cape Ann Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So can you comment on that?
Sure. I mean, Sophie and Noah of Alprilla are friends of mine. I'm so sad to see them go. And I also fully understand all the reasons why they're leaving. That is a big bummer that they're leaving. There's also, I will say, some new farms coming up. I think folks probably know Iron Ox Farm, which isn't in Gloucester, but they definitely have Gloucester roots. Those two farmers have lived in Gloucester for a long time, Stacy and Alex. And so I think I'm really relieved that they're here, because they're going to kind of fill that void a little bit, albeit not with meat production. I do think my understanding with Alprilla is that we'll continue to have access to what they're growing, that they'll be, bringing their products down here as well. Although, I'm so sad the Cape Ann Farmers Market is no longer in Gloucester. That is such a major disappointment, like personally and professionally. That is a huge disappointment. And I truly think like a huge blow to our community. I really hope that we can have that back next year. I'm like a little bit aware of some of the pieces as to why and all of that, not enough to like be able to speak to it, but and I'm aware to a degree where I think that we can have the farmers market next year is my hope. I live in Magnolia, and there's a little farmers market in our neighborhood, which is really great, not as large a scale as the Cape Ann Farmers Market, however. So I do really hope we can have the Cape Ann Farmers Market back. What I will say though, is that I think that while farmers markets have served a really important purpose for particularly new entry farmers, younger farmers just starting out, because it's a really low barrier to sales for them, it's also a pretty like finite sales opportunity for small scale growers, and it's a lot of work. And so it's not necessarily something that does fit all small scale growers or larger growers or whatever. So I think it is really important for folks to continue to support our small scale farmers through their CSAs, through the other ways that they're selling produce, regardless of farmers markets. It's one of the ways that our community gets access to produce, and it is a really important one. But I think even more so with the loss of that market, we need to be supporting small scale growers. So I hope that we have it back next year. I hope that folks will support the Magnolia Farmers Market, and I hope that folks will really continue to make an effort to support their local farmers like Cedar Rock, like Iron Ox, like these other folks that are still have produce to sell.
It's on your point, Alison, I'm very close with the Magnolia group as well. And I can tell you they're actually speaking as we speak now about what they can do to maybe even expand or build off of what the Cape Ann Farmers Market's left behind. Yeah. So
selfishly, I hope it makes my neighborhood, my Magnolia Market, expand and be even more robust. And I'm really relieved to hear that, because I do think that while some folks might have been outgrowing the Cape Ann Farmers Market, surely it continues to be an important sales avenue for a lot of folks, a lot of growers.
The
Absolutely.
Magnolia Market is on Sunday. I love a Sunday farmers market.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a really nice one. It's really community centric. They have a lot of activities for kids. My daughter loves going there. They often have like cookies and stuff like that in front of the library,
Yep.
and games and things like that. So it's a really great family market as well.
Yeah. Cool. So Alison, what are you hoping to accomplish in your tenure now with Backyard Growers?
Yeah, I know that's the question that I keep getting asked. I have a lot of ideas. I'm really focused right now on learning. I'm what's today? Tuesday? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I'm not even sure. We've got
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Sick kids at home will
Yeah.
confuse you on the day of the week, but it's my second day as full-time director. And I have a lot of ideas. I think that primarily right now, our focus is on just really deepening the work that we're doing in Cape Ann and expanding the work that we're doing primarily through our consulting work. Something that we had started doing prior to the pandemic as an organization is basically training other housing authority neighborhoods and other school districts outside of Cape Ann on our work and our models and our programs so that they can implement those in their own communities. And one thing that has come out of the pandemic is the ability to do that on a larger scale because everything can be virtual now. We don't have to hop in a car and drive to do a training or do these insight visits. And so I'm really excited about that because I think we have the opportunity to have a huge impact on a national scale, even though we're a small organization. So that's one of the things that I'm excited to kind of wrap my head around and focus on in the next year, in the next few years, but also really just continuing the legacy that Lara has left us with. I think that Gloucester, Cape Ann is better because our schools all have gardens. Like, as a parent, that's something that is really valuable and really meaningful to me for my kids and their education experience. And so that's something that I think personally, I'm really excited about just continuing like that work and the work in our community, but really the ability to have an impact on an even bigger scale, I think is something that I'm really like jonesing to go after.
Mm-hmm.
So spring is here and you guys always have some interesting things happening in the spring. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the dates right now because I don't have everything committed to memory just yet. But we are having our warm weather plant sale. I'm going to pull up the date. It is on May 14th, is open to our participants. So that's when we sell, warm weather loving veggies like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants, all of which have been grown by Cedar Rock Gardens, which are good friends of ours, Tucker and Elise over there. And then a few days after that, that sale will be open to non-participants. So that's something exciting that we have going on. We're also rolling out a new wave of workshops for the growing season in the next week or so. So we have things like container vegetable garden training, a tomato care, tomato plant care, something fun for gardening with kids. We're going to be hosting like an Ask the Experts panel later in the summer for folks to kind of pick people's brains on some garden, things they need to figure out. So we've got the plant sale coming up and a bunch of workshops.
Great.
Very
So
cool.
where can people attend the plant sale? Where does that
Plant
happen?
sale, I believe, it's going to be at our office, but outside. So that's 103 Rear Maplewood Ave. And again, on May 14th, it's open to our program participants, and then everyone else a couple of days later. So my understanding is that it will be an online sale, but pickups will be.
Okay, great.
I want to check our website.
Great.
So Alison, for those who don't really know much about Backyard Growers, what can you tell them?
We work with schools and community members to provide access to backyard gardens. So we help build gardens, we help train folks how to use gardens once they have them. We work with school communities around how to integrate children into those gardens. And we do the same thing with housing authority neighborhoods as well.
Hmm. And if people want to learn more about you or find you guys online, how can they go about doing that?
You can go to backyardgrowers.org.
If you could tell us, Alison, a little bit more, because it is such an interesting program about the backyard growers in the schools. The way that curriculum works is kids start in kindergarten and they go through 12th grade, right? And they always have a planting season and a harvest.
Yeah, so that's our signature program. It's called Salad Days and then also Harvest Days. So we work with 100% of pre-K through 8th grade students in Gloucester Public Schools. So each grade comes out in the spring and they plant a crop that's harvested before the school year is out. That's our Salad Days program. It's served to them via the cafeteria, the food that they've harvested. And then they also plant a crop in before school gets out that they come back and they harvest in the fall. Similarly, it's served to them through their school cafeteria. And so we also, along with that, do taste testing and things like that to get kids out into the garden. So even though that's like the same model every single year, what kids are getting out of it and the way that it's integrated into their curriculum changes depending on their grade. And that can look a little bit different at each school, but in reality, because kids are in a different developmental stage, each year of their life, their experience is different. And so the really cool thing that happens is that we, have generations of kids, coming out of Gloucester Public Schools now who have done that every single year of their education, in Gloucester. And they really like, that you see behavior changes, especially when they're doing it for that many years around what they want to try to eat, what they like to eat, and what they understand about healthy produce.
Well
Yeah,
said.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Alison, we thank you for your time, and let's continue the conversation, but enjoy your spring planting season.
Thanks.
And we'll see you sometime down the road.
All right. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.